What's up guys, this is Ben from Rad Tech, and today is video number 12 of our PC building series. Our PCs are all built and ready to go. They're booted up, and today we're talking about plugging stuff into your computer. Now that our PCs are ready to go, it's time to start plugging stuff in. When it comes to cables, there's no shortage of different kinds of connectors. Some are old, some are new, some are fast, some are slow. Some are for data, some are for power, some are for audio. All of this here that I have today is some of the things that I've collected over the years of working with computers. Let's start with the cables. Here we have a Firewire cable. There's different kinds of Firewire connections, but it's an obsolete connection and an obsolete cable, so we don't have to worry about that. I've had this for a little while and I've never had to use it. I don't know why I keep it, but I still have it. Next up, we have our USB. Here we have what is often called a printer cable. It goes from USB A to USB B. USB connections have letters and numbers. The numbers identify how fast the cable is, and the letters identify the connector itself. USB A has been the most popular for quite a while. It's the easily identifiable rectangular shape. USB B is not usually found on a computer, but it is often found on the devices that plug into the computer. It can be identified by what looks like a garage shape. You'll be using these cables on all sorts of things, from printers to audio interfaces to monitors, what have you. Next up, we have the USB Mini. These also have one end with a USB-A connector, and the other end has a very small connector. These connections are often confused with the micro USB. The micro USB looks fairly similar, but it's quite thinner. Micro USB was very popular with Android phones up until the release of USB-C. You'll often use cables with micro or mini USB on smaller devices like GoPros or phones. Next up, we have the newest one, which is USB-C. Just like the other one, USB-C comes with a USB-A connector, and on the other end has USB-C. USB-C is also known as Thunderbolt 3, but the name Thunderbolt 3 is only used when the cable is rated for very high speeds. Like the micro USB, USB-C connectors are very small, but they're the only USB connection that can be reversible. USB-C can be identified by the very thin, oval shape. It's commonly used in newer Android phones, new GoPros, some external drives, and is being adopted by many motherboard companies. Next up, we have USB Micro B. Now you might be thinking that I've already gone through micro USB. And this is true, but this connection is based off of micro USB with an added module on the side. This is why you're able to use a micro USB cable in place of the micro B USB cable. If you look closely, it's the exact same shape on the one side and then a little rectangle on the other. These cables are mostly used for external hard drives. When it comes to the USB-A connection, there's two different speeds. You can find this out by the color of the inside plastic of the connection. White will usually mean that it's slower in the USB 2 classification. Blue means it's faster in the USB 3 classification. Now, as you probably know with seeing keyboards and mice, cables with USB don't always have two USB connections on both sides. USB was made to be universal. That's why you can find it on strange items like this guy. This uses USB 3 on one end, and on the other end you can plug in SATA hard drives or SSDs. You'll often see USB used in many types of adapters. Here I have a USB-A SD card reader, and here I have a USB-C SD card reader. Here I have a USB-A to Ethernet connection. Speaking of Ethernet, I've got some right here. Ethernet will most likely always be faster than Wi-Fi. That's because with Ethernet, the only resistance the data has going from one end to the other is through the cable. Whereas with Wi-Fi, there's many items around that may cause interference. Ethernet cables come in various types of speed categories. These are identified by the name CAT, or category, and then a number. The higher the number, the faster the cable will be. For current consumer needs, Cat 5 or 6 will most likely always do the job well. Lastly, for the cables, I have my audio cables here. If you plan on using the audio connections only on your motherboard, then you probably don't need too many different types. I have an audio interface which has many different types of audio connections for the various speakers that I use in my office. This connects to my computer using USB. My computer sends the audio data to this guy, and then this audio interface sends the audio through all the different channels. Since there's so many different types of connections, I have so many different types of cables. Here we have a 1/4 inch cable, also known as an aux cable. Here I have a cable with a 1/8 connection on one end, and then two RCA connections on the other, with an RCA to 1/4 inch adapter. This way I can get a stereo signal to this connection using both of these as monos. After using this cable for a while, I eventually went out and got myself the real thing. This does the exact same thing, going from 2/4 inch connections to a 1/8 connection. This is a Kid Picks mics. This is a Kid Picks mics. This is a Kid Picks mics. This is a Kid Pick mic. This is a Kid Picks mic when I used when I was a kid with the game, and I still have it just in case I ever need an extra mic. Next up, I have some spare stereo speaker cable. I have this in case I ever need to replace or extend a speaker cable. Here I have two adapters that go from 1/8 inch TRRS that go to female XLR and female 1/8 inch. I use these if I ever need to connect my camera or an audio recorder to a soundboard. This here is a guitar patch cable. Before I had all this, I used to play my iPod music off of a guitar speaker. So I'd use this to connect from my guitar amp to this adapter that goes from 1/4 inch to 1/8 inch. And finally, I have a standard XLR cable. This goes from a female to male XLR. Here's the standard power cable, also known as IEC. These usually come with your power source and some other components like your monitor. Even though they come with them, I still like to have some extra around just in case. In my storage drive video, I mentioned my external hard drives, but I figured since they plug into your computer that this would be an appropriate time to mention them. External hard drives come in many different shapes and sizes, as you can see. Most of them are all fairly similar. A small drive with a few terabytes that uses USB micro B. Found out recently that if you have any extra drink cozies, they fit perfectly around the Western Digital My Passport drives. All you have to do is slide them in with the USB port facing out, and they provide a bit of extra support. This is the enclosure that I mentioned before, where you can plug in a SATA hard drive or SSD. On the back, there's a USB micro B connection. This is my newest hard drive, which uses USB-C. I like this for bringing around in my backpack because I know that my data will be a little bit more secure with the extra ruggedness. And finally, this is my 6 terabyte beast that I like to back everything up onto. I got this little thing on Wish. This takes USB micro B and splits it off into multiple different USB ports, which you can turn on and off. I found that it overheated a lot, but if you're limited with the amount of USB ports on your computer, this might be something that you should look into. When I'm traveling with my laptop, I like to keep a pencil case full of all the extra stuff that I might need. So in here, I have a bunch of USB drives, my SD cards, some various audio adapters like my 1/4 inch to 1/8 inch adapters, a few USB adapters, so I have a USB A to C, USB A to micro B, a USB female A to B. For my MacBook, I have a Thunderbolt 2 to Ethernet, and for cables, I have almost every kind of USB, an Ethernet, and a headphone jack splitter. When you think of USB devices, you'll often think of your keyboard and your mouse. But for those of us that play a lot of games, a gaming USB controller is often a good idea. Some games just feel so much better to use a controller than a mouse and keyboard, and that's why I have this USB controller. If you find your hand gets tired of the ergonomics of your mouse, then a Wacom tablet may be a good idea for you. I have a wired version, but they also come with Bluetooth versions. Wacom tablets are great because they take a pen input the same way that you can use a mouse. All you do is draw around on your tablet and your computer takes that in as a mouse input. They also come with convenient programmable buttons. Wacom tablets are great for creative professionals like motion graphics designers, graphic designers, or photographers. Finally, we have our mouse and keyboards. There's many different types of both. Whether you want to focus more on the ergonomics, the RGB, the feel of the keys, what have you, there'll always be one for you. I've heard you can connect Apple's Magic Keyboard and Mouse to your PC, so if you want me to make a video about that, let me know in the description and I'll happily do that. I've been a fan of Apple's Magic Keyboard and Mouse for quite a while, and I personally find that they've only been getting better. I just got my hands recently on the brand new Mac Pro, so make sure you're subscribed and click the bell icon so that you don't miss my video on that computer. If you're not a fan of Apple's newest keyboard and mice, maybe some of their old stuff may tickle your fancy. Here I have the keyboard and mouse from their old iconic colorful iMac. The mouse only has one input, which is a single click, but I personally love the keys because they're nice and soft. If you like the old retro feel, but you don't like this mouse, you could always go out and find yourself an old mouse that has both left and right clicks and a mouse wheel. This one from HP is quite a few years old, but if you like the nostalgic feel, then this one could be for you. Next up, we have some of our gaming stuff. When I first started PC gaming, I started with a budget keyboard and mouse. This is the keyboard I started with. This keyboard is made by a company I've never heard from before, and it's called Real Internet Idea. While many gaming keyboards have RGB, this one just has R. Even though it's lacking the green and blue, this keyboard has many different functions of the red lights, whether you like a solid look or having lights move around on the keyboard as you use it. While using this keyboard, I also use this mouse. This is a Nextech Basic Optical mouse. It doesn't have any wireless feature, it's probably about 30 bucks, but it feels good and it does what it needs to do well. For what I paid for both of these and the amount of use that I got out of them, and considering that they're still working years after when I bought them, the fact that both of these are budget-friendly options makes it worth every dollar I spent. If you want to stick within the budget option, but you want a wireless mouse, this is a wireless mouse from a company called Elephant. The model name is ELE-M521 ELE-G7 After I moved from the Nextech mouse, I got this, and I love this just as much. The clicking is very quiet on this mouse. It has 2 thumb buttons on it, as well as 2 DPI buttons, and a scroll wheel. While only being about $10 to $15, I found it worth its while, although it seemed to drain its battery quite fast, even though I turned it off when I wasn't using it. After a few months of using it, I noticed that it didn't track my movements on my desk as well as it used to, so I gave it up and moved on. And finally, this brings me to what I use now. This is the keyboard that I use currently. It's made by a company called Red Dragon, which I had never heard of before, but I love it. It features full RGB, programmable macro buttons, and the greatest clicky blue switches that I've ever used. I've had this for the past few months using it daily, and I've never had any issues with it. There's so many different programmed LED patterns on this that I never get bored of them. And for all the features that this comes with, it's only about half of the price of what some of the premium keyboards cost. And then that brings us to the mouse. I never thought that having a premium mouse would be a good idea, because it's just a hunk of plastic in your hand. But then I saw the Logitech G900. The specs looked great, the photos looked great, but the unboxing of this product brought me over the top. Just opening this box makes me feel like this is a premium product. This mouse's weight distribution feels great in the hand. The left and right clicks are nice and clicky, which I love. You can use it like normal as a wireless mouse, and then as the battery dies, take this off, plug it back in, and then keep using your mouse as normal. That's it for today. Make sure to like this video, follow me on Instagram, and comment down below what mouse and keyboard you use on a daily basis. Thanks for watching. Peace.